Hi, Sam from iFootage here. Now, we've had a lot of messages about how to balance the iFootage Wildcat III properly. We have previously made a video on how to balance the Wildcat. However, we thought we'd come back and give you a bit more detail in a more up-to-date video on how to properly balance it. Now, the Wildcat comes in two different variants. You've got the carbon fibre and aluminium versions. The aluminium holds up to 3 kilograms or about 6 pounds, and the carbon fibre holds up to 1.5 kilograms and around 3 pounds. So make sure that whatever rig you are putting on the Wildcat, it's within that payload variant, because this will massively and dramatically affect, well, how it stabilizes your footage. Because if you're over the payload, then obviously it's not going to balance properly. Choosing the right version of the Wildcat is essential. Choosing the aluminium gives you a little extra payload, meaning you can balance some heavier cameras on the Wildcat, whereas using the carbon fibre, although light, it also means there's a lighter payload. Now, here with me today, I have the carbon fibre version. As you can see, I've got a Sony a6100 on top. Now, this perfectly comes into that 1.5 kilogram payload. It's actually just under about 1.2 kilograms. Now, I have slightly stabilised it, however, it's not fully there just yet. As you can see, there's a little bit of jarring back and forth. I think a major thing as well is because these Wildcats are so light, sometimes the odd movement, whether that's in the wind or just you move slightly one way, it's going to go anyway because of the inertia of the movement. Now, when getting started with balancing the Wildcat, the first thing you want to do is obviously attach the base plate onto your camera. Now, make sure that the base plate sits at around the midpoint of where you think the weight will be equally dispersed on both sides. This just makes your balancing easier when we come to the finer adjustments. After screwing in your base plate, a trick I always like to use is to get a pen or a pencil. Now, you take your camera and you just line up on that pencil until you find the rough midpoint where it seems like it would be balanced properly. Once you've done this, make note of the number that it lines up with. So for my setup, I've left all the counterweights on. This is just because the counterweights come to the same payload just about as the camera on top. So with just a few adjustments in the actual stem of the stabiliser, it will mean that I'll have the perfect balance. Once you've done this, put your camera onto your stabiliser. Now, once your camera is on your stabiliser, make sure not to tighten it all the way down and clasp it. This is because we have fine adjustment knobs, which just make sure that you have the perfect balance. Firstly, we're going to do the left and right. As you can see, my stabiliser is moving slightly to the right, which means I want to move it to the left. So you go to your fine adjustment knobs and you move the stabiliser to the left until you think it's about equal. There we go. So now it's not moving either way and we're balanced in the centre. Obviously, you may be encountering your camera leaning forwards or backwards. As you can see here, the camera keeps wanting to go forwards as if to topple over. So to counter that, we want to move it backwards. You want to go back to your fine tuning knobs and just move them backwards. It's often necessary to use the fine adjustment settings. To do this, the camera will need to be balanced and locked, only enough to stop it sliding off, but not enough to inhibit the fine adjustment movement forwards or sideways. Remembering when we use the pen or your pencil to make sure that the weight was correctly dispersed, you want to go to that number, and around there will be your perfect center point for your balance. There we go. So now it's not wanting to go anywhere. Now, if your stem is too long, you may have this sort of jarring whenever the inertia kicks in. As you can see, it's kind of like flaking around everywhere. To counteract that, all you want to do is go to the twist release. You want to twist it down to a point where it's not going to do that anymore. So for me, it's right to the extent of it as the camera is equaled out. And as you can see, now I have made those adjustments, it's staying still. Now, once you've got your camera balanced and you think you are ready to go, please keep in mind that you also have to make sure that your style of shooting is correct to how you use a modern day stabiliser. As these aren't electronic, there's going to be no dampening and you can't control the movement without using your hands. Now, the easiest way to control a stabiliser is to pinch with your non-dominant hand and to hold with your dominant hand. So for me, I'm right-handed, which means I will hold the camera and the stabiliser in my right hand, like so. And then with my left hand and my index and thumb, I go down to the bottom or just about the midpoint, usually around here, and you want to use small tap motions to turn the camera. You just want to use light tapping movements which allow you to get those nice turns and swivels. Obviously, because the stabiliser is light as well, you want to make sure that you're not holding the stem at any point while shooting. The best way to walk when holding a stabiliser is to have your knees slightly bent. This just helps to dampen any of the up and down movement. Obviously the stabiliser itself, when you hold it, will also help to get rid of that, but it's always best to prepare yourself, making sure your walk is as steady as possible. Hopefully at this point you are all balanced and ready to go. I'm Sam from iFootage, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one.